Hello, I'm Dave. So I really like listening to the Bible as I look at the words on the page, and I also really enjoy the visuals and the Bible Project translation. Trouble is there's no good audio recordings of the Bible Project translation that I've been able to find with these visuals. So I'm going to read it, and you're going to follow along, and you decided to start at the beginning. So my expectation is that you're looking at either the printed version or more likely the website version, which is what I've got up in front of me, the genesis-melodies.web.app/abraham.html. At the time of these readings, I'm really focused on the Abraham narratives, and so how do we understand those? And really the way we understand those is to start at the beginning of Genesis 1:1. So we're going to read from the beginning. I am going to try my best to focus on reading the text, but I absolutely cannot stop myself from making some comments here and there. And so I'll probably just try to embrace it and try to point out some things that I find interesting in the text. All right, so we start in with Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, Elohim created the skies and the land. I could spend half an hour talking about this verse, but I'll just kind of say a couple things. First off, if you're in the web app, you can actually hover over the words in English. So if you hover over in the beginning, you can see the Hebrew over on the right, which I think that's fun. So in the beginning is the word Reshit, and it's got a bait in front of it. So it's Bereshit is the first word of the Bible. Do not pronounce it differently. Bereshit is the right pronunciation. And that just means the initial period. Elohim, most people are surprised by the Bible Project's translation of the word God into the word Elohim. There's multiple words used for God in the Bible. The one that's used in this narrative is Elohim. It's a more generic term for God that other cultures would have recognized as like the supreme divine being. It also has other meanings just to mean spiritual creatures in general, but we won't go into that. It means God in this context. And Elohim bara, he created the skies and the lands. Most people translate this as the heavens and the earth, which is a fine translation, but it usually makes our context think of globe, but you got to think like an ancient Israelites. I will keep going, but also point out that these narratives are extremely highly structured. It is no accident that if you go over and count the Hebrew words, you will count that there are 7 Hebrew words in this opening area. 7 is a number for completion, and it's also a sign of an oath, like a God's oath. And they absolutely love the number 7. And these narratives are so highly structured. You also notice that the next chunk, the pre-creation state, is going to be 14 Hebrew words if you wanted to go in and count it. And then that's mirrored by the close in day 7. All right, let's keep reading. So now the land was wild and waste. Tohu vabohu, 2 rhyming words in Hebrew, which is kind of fun. And darkness was over the face of the Tahom, the watery deep. But the Ruach, the wind, the breath of Elohim, was hovering over the face of the waters. A very poetic way to start things off, and it fits into the cosmology that the authors would have had. The world began not as like a void of space, but as watery chaos. And so that was very common in their culture. And you can think about this 2 ways. You can think of it as darkness over the Tahom, or the Ruach of Elohim hovering, about to act over the waters. By the way, if you're on the electronic version, you can also click on these words. If you were to click on the word hovering, you would see a little bit more about it. And so it means like hover, like a bird. That one's not the world's best example, but you can see when it's used and kind of a little bit more about the word in this interface, which is kind of fun. So we start things off with chaos, but with the breath of God, right? This is actually a melody that you're going to see repeated many times throughout the cycle, which is what we're going to be talking about. This is the Genesis Melodies class, right? If you were to click on chapter 8, just really quickly, the next time through the cycle, it will talk about how Elohim remembered God, and he remembered the living creatures and the beast in the ark, and Elohim caused to pass his Ruach to cover the land, and the waters subsided. So what we're reading here in Genesis 1 verse 2 is going to get pattern matched with the next time through the cycle. And some credit to the dividers of the Bible that the first cycle is exactly 7 chapters, right? So way to go, 16th century people who divided the Bible. By the way, these patterns, they're just going to keep on going. Just to point out like one more, the beginning of the Abraham narrative, which is what we're going to focus on. If you click on where it says chapter 11, verse 27 through 12:5, the pre-creation state here, it's harder to see, but the pre-creation state here is Terach's journey. So if you see where it says Terach's journey, and so it starts with like Haran died, and then at the end of this, Terach died, and their goal, if you look up one section from there, their goal was to go to the land of Canaan, but they didn't make it. They went to Haran and they settled there, right? And so that's the preconditioned state in the start of the Abraham story. And then what comes next? Well, the thing that comes next is the Ruach of Elohim to begin creating life, right? And sure enough, Yahweh said to Abram, get yourself going, right? And so this new life that's going to come out of the preconditioned state is going to start with the wind breath of God. And so you will see patterns within patterns within patterns. And there's some notes here in the melody that are just going to get picked up and reused in so many interesting ways. Let's keep going. So day 1. You can see in the narrative structure with the way we set it up that day 1 patterns with day 4. These first 3, days 1, 2, and 3, are going to be setting up environments, and then days 4, 5, and 6 are going to be filling them with inhabitants. I'm guessing you've read the Bible before. You already know many of these things. We're just trying to help you meditate and kind of go through them again. So day 1 starts with, and Elohim said, let there be light, or... and by the way, if you hover over the word light, you can see that it's used exactly 5 times in this day 1. And then if you go look at day 4, which is the inhabitants, it's the ma'or, or menorahs, right? And if you go hover over in verse 14, the word lights, there you'll see that there's 5 of those. And in fact, they pattern match themselves like really, really well. So these authors are making all kinds of connections, which lets you get more out of the text. All right, so let there be light, and there was light. There's no sun yet, but there's light. And so light kind of represents the way of God, the way to live. And Elohim saw. This word Saul is going to be incredibly important. If you wanted to, you could click on the word Saul, and you could see like how many times it shows up here. It shows up in this line and then 7 more times, right? And there's going to be all kinds of like God saw that it was not good that man was alone. Eve saw that the fruit looked good in her eyes. This Saul theme is just tremendously huge. But he saw that the light was good. And the word good here is tov. You may as well learn a little Hebrew with the word tov. And so Elohim separated the light from the darkness, and he called the light day, and the darkness he called night. There's a lot of calling and naming. So Adam will name the animals. Abraham will call upon the name of the Lord. And so the first thing that Elohim does is some separating and some calling, and the first thing Adam will do is some naming of the animals. Same word, to call out or read. And there was evening and there was morning the first day. Evening in Hebrew thought was the start of a new day, and so not surprising they do evening and morning. You would expect me to read day 2 next, but I'm going to go read day 4 next. So we're going to do 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, and then 7. So day 4, picking up at verse 14 if you're on a printed copy. And Elohim said, let there be lights in the rakia of the skies. So this rakia is going to get introduced on day 2. It's a dividing barrier between the waters, and so it fit very well with their cosmology. We like to call it a snow globe, but it's the divider, right? So he said, let there be menorahs in the rakia of the skies. By the way, skies is hashemayim. It's just fun to pronounce if you hover over the word skies. To separate day from the night, and let them be for signs. So this word signs is going to be important. And for sacred feast, and for days in the years. So they're going to mark when it's time for rest. So they're going to mark day and night. So like when you know it's Sabbath, when it's time to sleep. And then also for the feast, when it's time to take week-long breaks. And then also the 7-year cycle. So this is going to be their role. They're going to be rulers, marshals of the day and the night. Let them be for lights in the rakia of the skies, to give light onto the land. And it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the great light to rule the day and the small light to rule the night. This type of ruling, it's kind of like to rule with an iron fist. I like to think of the word marshal, which happens to fit pretty close with what the Hebrew is. Humans will rule in a different way, by the way. They won't marshal. And also the stars, an afterthought there. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like, and also Eve had Abel, right? All right. And Elohim placed them in the rakia of the skies to give light on the land and to rule the day and the night, and to separate the day, the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. You can feel by the repetitions that we've got like some chiastic structures going on here, and you could dive into that, and that's fun, but it would take too much time for me to hit everything, right? And there was evening and there was morning on the fourth day. So creation of day and night, and then inhabitants to fill the day and night. By the way, this environment and then inhabitants, it's also supported. If you look at the start of day 7, you can just scroll down and find it real quick. It says, they were completed, the skies and the land, and their host. And so it's not surprising at all that we not only created the skies and the land, but also filled it up, right? And so that's kind of what the 4, 5, 6 are all about. All right, now we're going to roll back to day 2. So flip in your pages or scroll back up to day 2. And Elohim said, let there be a rakia in the middle of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters. And Elohim made the rakia, and he separated the waters which were below the rakia from the waters which were above the rakia. And it was so. And Elohim called the rakia skies. So this space, this heaven space, is the skies, the shemayim. And by the way, the word shemayim is very similar to the word for water, which is mayim. It's just got like a sheen in front of it, which is kind of interesting. And there was evening and there was morning the second day. So division in day 2. People regularly point out that there's nothing good about day 2. They just kind of accepted in their cosmology, yeah, that had to happen, right? There had to be a separation from day 1 and day 2. So now let's fill these 2 spaces up in day 5. And Elohim said, let the waters swarm with a swarm of living creatures, and let birds fly above the land against the face of the rakia of the skies. And Elohim created the great sea monsters. By the way, if you're in the web app, you can see the word created is in blue here. This is actually the first use of the verb bara that we've seen since the title. And so it's interesting, like, this created the skies and land is actually the word created bara is not used in days 1, 2, 3, or 4. It doesn't come up until we start creating the living creatures. So definitely something special about the living creatures. So that they're going to be called the nefesh hayah. And it starts with a sea monster. That's a whole nother tangent, right? And every living creature that moves, with which the waters swarmed after their kind, and every bird of wing after its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And Elohim blessed them, our first blessing. So the word for blessing is barak. It's very similar to the word bara for created. It's also very similar to the word bereshit, which started it. So those 3 words are kind of some of the key words in this. There's 10 of them total, the bara words, right? So Elohim blessed them. So this is the animals that are filling up the skies and the water. And he said to them, be fruitful and multiply. So that's not just to human, that's to all the nefesh hayah. Fill the waters and the seas. Let the birds multiply on the land. And there was evening and there was morning the 5th day. Cool. No humans still. Let's go back. Let's roll it back to day 3. We're going to now create the dry land, this special place. You'll notice that day 3 is special because it's kind of got 2 chunks. There's 2 God saids, Elohim saids, and there's 2 goods in it. So it's kind of like a bonus in day 3. Day 6 is going to have 3 chunks, right? So double bonus over there. All right, so day 3, verse 9. And Elohim said, let the waters below the skies be gathered into one place, and let the dry ground be seen. And it was so. And Elohim called the dry ground land. So if you remember, we've got this calling thing going on. And he gathered the waters, he called seas. So if you kind of scroll up with your eyes a little bit, that word called, we named the skies, the land, and the seas. This three-tiered cosmos is very important in how these authors would think about a space, right? So a cosmos, whether it's the entire universe, is going to be divided into three. There's the skies, that's where the Elohim live. Their abode, that's where God would live. And then there's the land, that's where we live. And then there's the seas, that's where nobody lives, right? Except for maybe the the great sea monster. And you're going to see this three-tier division anytime there's a cosmos. And so the ark is a miniature cosmos. It's going to be divided into three layers. The temple is a miniature cosmos. It's going to be divided into three layers. The Eden, and then the garden in Eden, in the middle of the garden, it's going to be divided into three layers. And so if you look for this theme of three layers, you're going to see it a lot. But we've got the first three layers of the entire cosmos right here. All right. And Elohim saw that it was good. That's our second seeing of good. If you remember, the light was good earlier. And then we've got, and that should kind of be the end based on the pattern that day 1 and 2 set, but it's not. So just creating the land is not enough for day 3. We're also going to have on day 3 things come up out of the ground, right? Lots of fun little third day references there with Jesus even, right? And Elohim said, let the land sprout vegetation, vegetative plants that produce seed, fruit trees that make fruit according to its kind, which has the seed inside of it. The Bible, so fun. So seed, it's the word zerah, to keep seed alive. This applies to not just plants, but also humans. So the ark is to keep seed alive. And this fruit, is fruit going to be an important thing coming up? You bet. And you also see phrases like according to their kind. And so according to their kind is used 10 times in this section. Everything is intentional and clearly thought out so much time, right? You're also going to see this according to its kind really heavy when we get to the end of this first melody with the flood narrative. So when new creation starts, it's going to be with these every creature according to its kind coming out of the ark. And so we're going to kind of be a part of the next lap in the cycle. But now it's the first creation, right? And it was so. And the land brought out vegetation, vegetative plants that produce seed according to its kind, and fruits that make fruit, which has seed in it according to its kind. If you're looking at the web version, you can see the word make is kind of a weird word. It's highlighted in a red here. This is the word asa. The word asa appears in here 10 times, right? And it's interesting that asa'ing, making, is something God did in day 2. So he made the rakia. But it's something that his created beings can also do. So the trees will make fruit. They will asa fruits. That's kind of interesting. It shows this involvement in his creation, right? And he saw that it was good. And there was evening and there was morning the third day. Day 6. So day 6 is broken up into 3 chunks. You can kind of see the division lines here over in day 6. And so there's going to be multiple God saids that kind of leads off each chunk. And there's going to be multiple saw that it was good, especially the very last one in day 6. He saw that it was very good. Tov miod. Let's read day 6, starting in verse 24. And Elohim said, let the land bring out living creatures according to their kind, cattle and creeping things and beasts of the land according to their kind. And it was so. It's like music, right? And Elohim made the beasts of the land according to their kind, the cattle according to their kind, and the creepers of the ground according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. So that saw that it was good, number 6 out of the 7. And so the first third of day 6 is the creation of animals. And so the Nefesh Hayah, the beast with the breath of life in them, right? So very important, made before humans in this creation narrative. And now we get to the center of day 6, which you can see is broken into 3 parts, 3s within 3s within 3s. I love these guys. And in the middle, verse 27 is the center of the center of the center of this, right? So we'll start in verse 26. And Elohim said, and let us make. Suddenly, Elohim is plural. That's fun. That'll also happen in the Babylon, Tower of Babel later, where let us go down. So this God plus the divine council. So let us make human in our image, according to our likeness. So this, according to its kind, has been used 10 times. We're very familiar with it. This one is similar but different. So they will be made according to God's image. So humans, very special because of this line. They're Salim. And they will rule, a different word for rule than what the sun and the moon and the stars did, so rule in a different way. I think of this rule as like you've been given a puppy, right? Like you're to rule the puppy, but you're also pretty responsible for this puppy and taking care of it, right? So let them rule over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the sky, and over the cattle, and over all the land, and over every creeper that creeps on the land. So responsible for all these things, right? And Elohim created in his image. In the image of Elohim, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Much like the title, you could spend half an hour on just this one verse, right? So this is the very center, right? Created human in his image. In the image of God, he created him, which is gender neutral, male and female. So now we're clearly specifying both genders. He created them. And so the two of them are to become one, which is going to become an issue, but to be united. And so lots you could do with just this verse 27. So can't say enough about it. You can look at it to your heart's content. Very, very important to the central of this message. All right. And Elohim blessed them, kind of like he did with the animals. And he said to them, so there's actually another Elohim said here. So this center section actually has 2 Elohim saids. It's numbers 8 and 9. Be fruitful and multiply, fill the land, subdue it. And so subdue it is new. So we're supposed to be in charge. And we're supposed to rule over the fish of the sea. We saw that just on the other side of the chiastic structure. And over the birds of the sky, and over the living creatures that creep on the land. So clearly some repetition, but this structure is important. And so the authors are not crazy. They're just trying to make sure that verse 18 matches verse 26 so that you can see the middle in verse 27. All right, so after we're made, we get the closing third of day 6. And Elohim said, behold, I have given to you every plant producing seed that is on the face of the land, and every tree which has fruit producing seed. It shall be food for you. So the food is the things that were made in day 3. And so that's for us, which is great. And for every beast of the land, and for every bird of the sky, and for everything that moves on the land, which has living being in it, every green plant is for food. So pretty clear on day 6, we're meant to be vegan. That's interesting. I'm not vegan, right? There will come a time where the eating of meat is considered okay. If you wanted to go find it, it's probably going to be around chapter 9. I think if you click on chapter 9, verse 1, if you look at 9:3, it says, every creeper that is living, for you it will be for eating. And so I give all to you, as I gave the green plant. So you can see that the Bible is incredibly linked. So chapter 9, verse 3 here is coming right back to this day 6 thing. But you'll notice if you were to not just pull verse 9:3 out of context, that verse 2 says, the fear of you and the terror of you will be upon every living creature. That doesn't sound great. So when we get here, we'll talk about it more, but this is kind of in the compromise zone, which is kind of interesting. It's and then the one below, it's like, how do you deal with humans that kill humans, right? So it's kind of interesting that we are allowed to eat meat based on 9:3, but that doesn't come till later. All right, going back to where I was at, if I can find my place again. um, so let's see here. We were, and it was so, verse 31 is where we'll pick up. And God saw all that he had assad, and behold, it was very good. Tov miod. So this world is very good. Paul's going to talk about creation. I'm thinking of 1 Corinthians chapter 15 here. And there was evening and there was morning the sixth day. Day 7. Another thing I'll mention before I dive into day 7, that it's really fun to look at other creation narratives from similar time periods, the ancient Near East. And a lot of theirs are about gods that battle. So it's this violent battle between the gods, and the humans are the slaves who are here to serve the gods. And this narrative is based on some of theirs, it's obviously in conversation with them, but it's wildly different in that Elohim speaks, and it is, right? And humans are not scum to serve the God. Humans are created in the image of God, and they've been given all of this, right? This is to show how God loves you, right? And it's very good, right? And then a lot of their creation narratives do end with after the big battle, the God rested. And so sure enough, the narrative here ends with God resting. And so it finishes with, and they were completed, the skies and the land and all their host. And so that line in some ways is the match to the first line, verse 1, that it's now kind of done. By the way, this is in chapter 2 now. This is the most classic epic fail of the 16th century chapter-verse dividing, folks. Oh well. And then, by the way, the next, starting at verse 2 here, we're going to start in with this 7 words thing again. So every line here is exactly 7 Hebrew words. So this set of 3 sevens matches the beginning and word count. All these things, right? And Elohim completed on the 7th day his work which he had made. And he rested on the 7th day. And this is like the sabbatical word, right? So Shabbat word here. He rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made. And he blessed the 7th day and set it apart as holy. And so you can see why these stories were so polished and lived on, because they're so important to the people understanding who they were. If you're in exile and you're being pressured in every possible way to work on the Sabbath, you better have some pretty ironclad, unflappable reasons why you don't do that, right? So you don't do that because you set it apart as holy in the same way that Elohim did here. And if somebody says otherwise, you say death first, right? And so really interesting. I also do not observe Sabbath, which is also interesting to me. And I will also say it's interesting that this is the only time the Sabbath is mentioned in Genesis, right? So Sabbath is not mentioned in Genesis. It doesn't come up until manna in the desert in Exodus, right? Where on the 7th day you'll not collect manna. And so you can see that the arrangement of these stories is really interesting. So this story is first because it introduces so many themes. It's so significant to creation that it makes sense as first, but it was not necessarily written first. By the way, it's also really interesting that this in the beginning that we know starts Genesis 1. It also starts the Gospel according to John, which is really neat. The Gospel according to John, as we kind of learned from the patriarchs, was written by John, the same person that wrote Revelation. I mention that because Revelation is usually thought of the last book of the Bible. But if you read it carefully, you can see that John kind of says he's about to die, right, in Revelation. And if you read John carefully, especially the second to last verse, you can see it was probably finished by people after he died. There's a lot going in there. So I think it's fun that the first book of the Bible, Genesis, starts with in the beginning, and then the chronically last added book written is the Gospel according to John, which starts the same way. So some pretty significant claims there about what the Gospel of John is completing this unified story. All right, I hadn't read the last line. So he set it apart as holy, and because on it he rested from all his work, which Elohim created to make. Created is that final use of bara. It's actually the sixth one, but the 10th of the bara, bereshit, barak. And then make is the 10th asa. They counted everything, man. Like these people, they'd be insane. All right, that is the end of the first chunk. We're then going to move into the Eden narrative. The interface that you kind of see before you is about to go away. So I made this because I enjoyed looking at the Hebrew and the keywords and clicking on things and things like that, but it takes a lot of work. What the visuals are going to move to is they're going to move to the Bible Project Classroom visuals. So go ahead and click on the 2:4-17. This is going to be the introduction to the Eden narrative. And you'll notice that it's much more colorful, which is fun. But there's no clicking or Hebrew or anything like that. So always more you can do. All right, take a minute and pause, and then we're going to dive in with the Eden narrative. All right, the Eden narrative. The Eden narrative is broken into parts. People like to divide it into 7 parts. I'm okay with that. If you look at the links you can click on kind of over the left here, it looks like 6 parts. But that's just because one of the parts is so short, they just stick it in with the others. And so we'll talk about it and look at it. Whenever something is written in a highly structured way, it's written in a chiastic structure. I sometimes cheat and I like to peek at the middle. The middle is, if you wanted to click on it, going to come in chapter 3, verse 6. And so 3:6, if you kind of scroll down to it, it is when the woman, who does not have a name yet, saw that the tree was tov for eating, and it was desirable to the eyes to make one wise. She took from the fruit and she ate, and she gave to her husband who was with her, and he ate, right? And so that's going to be the center of this whole thing, right? And you can see how it's going to connect very directly to what we read in Genesis 1, where God saw that it was good. So here, people see in their own eyes what is good, and then they take. And then she gave to Adam, and oh my goodness, the repetitions of this taking and giving theme, it's just off the charts. Just to mention a couple that are going to happen in the Abraham story. If you go click on chapter 12, it says 10 through 20 over here. The first one that occurs in Abraham, it's verses 14 and 15 of chapter 12. It's whenever he's in Egypt. The Egyptians saw the woman, that she was very beautiful. It's that same word, tov. So the Egyptians saw that she was tov, and they saw her, and they took her, and then they gave her to Pharaoh, right? So you can see a pretty clear repeated melody there. If you want an even more extreme one, click on chapter 16, just on the side here. Go to 16:3 real quick with me. 16:3, it reads that Sarai, the wife of Abram, by the way, I should have said this earlier, but the better pronunciation of Abram is Avram. The better pronunciation of Abraham is Avraham. And I say both, right? So, all right. So at any rate, Sarai, the wife of Abram, took Hagar, her Egyptian slave girl, at the end of 20 years of him dwelling in the land of Canaan, and she gave her to Abram, her husband, as wife. And he went into her and she became pregnant, right? And so this theme of seeing that it's good, and then taking, and then giving to Avram here, this melody just keeps coming up. And so these authors wrote these things expecting you to see these, right? All right, so that was kind of a cheat. That was to look at the center of the Eden story, to look at a repeated melody. But our goal is to read the Eden narrative. So we're going to scroll all the way back to chapter 2, verse 4, which is where Eden starts. It starts with the words, "These are the generations of the skies and the land when they were created." These are the generations is kind of like a header. There's 10 of them in Genesis, Gotta love these authors, right? And it's a toledot, is this word generations. And it's clearly connected to the previous junction because it says the skies and the land again. But it's also moving forwards, and that's what's called a hinge. So it's very common for the end of a story and then the beginning of the next story to be connected through a hinge. We have trouble deciding where does it belong, but most people, because we feel like we have to divide things like cleanly, but the hinge is in both, right? And so we start with pre-creation state. In the day when Yahweh made the skies and the lands, now no shrub of the field was yet in the land, and no plant of the field had yet sprouted. For the Lord God had not sent rain upon the land, and there was no human to work the ground. This is that moment where like you hear like the record scratch. It's like, wait, what? And so the authors put this story right next to the other story. The other story started with too much water, so it was nothing but watery chaos, and God separates them. The wind breath of God separates. And then this creation narrative appears directly contradictory because it starts with nothing. But again, they both start with nothing, but its image for nothing is dryness, a dry, barren desert with no water, right? Which is kind of, that's funny. And so you can decide if that bothers you, but these authors had no problems with it. The idea of setting two seemingly contradictory things right next to each other was not a problem for them with the video camera footage. Instead, what they're doing is they're doing theology, right? And so the first story is really rather ideal, right? So God makes humans to rule, and then God rests, and it's all good, right? Like nothing but ideal in the creation narrative. And then this one's going to begin being more realistic, right? So there's going to be problems. You don't just make people and walk away and rule with them, and everything's great. There's choices that we make. All right, so the preconditioned state kind of finished in verses 4 or 5. And now we start in on verse 6. We're going to have things kind of start coming up. By the way, there's a tremendous wordplay here. The word ground is Adamah, and then out of the ground is going to come Adam, or Adam, human. And then the first thing that comes up here is an aid. And if you were to look at the Hebrew words, literally you're just taking off a letter. So if you have ground, which is Adamah, you take off one letter, you get Adam. You take Adam, you take off the M at the end, you get aid. And so the first thing up here is the two letters for an aid. A stream/flow, an aid, would go up and water the whole face of the ground. So first we have an aid. And then Yahweh formed the human. So notice we actually did it in verse 4, and I skipped right over it. We switched the name from Elohim to Yahweh. And now, obviously, secular authors like to point out that these came from different sources, and there may be some truth to that. But really, it's much more intimate, personal name for God. So Yahweh means I am, Ehweh. And so it's the name that they would have known him as, the tetragram, can't even say the words, YHWH, which we think is pronounced Yahweh. It was so sacred that they wouldn't say it. They would instead say Adonai because the sacred name was holy, but I don't mind saying Yahweh. And so it's just kind of nice to see what the Hebrew really says here. And so Yahweh formed the Adam from the dust of the ground. Really controversial whether when you say Adam, it means like generic human or whether it means the specific individual Adam. And usually it says Ha-Adamah, which means the human. And so in the Bible Project translation here, they never say the word Adam anywhere in this narrative. They actually don't say the word Adam until the end of chapter 4, I think, is when you first get Adam. So chapter 4, verse 25 is when you're going to first see Adam. And that's when the Hebrew authors removed the ha from Adamah. And so they just say Adam. And so that's where they think that you should translate it to Adam. That's not necessarily universally agreed because if you go look at the Septuagint, they call him Adam even from this point, right? Which is fine. All right. Yahweh formed the human from the dust of the ground, so coming from the dust, and he breathed into the nostrils the breath of life. I was waiting for this. So I was expecting, because I know the pattern, that we would have a pre-creation state, and then that life would come about because of the Ruach of God. Now, interestingly here, it's not the word Ruach. He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. It's a synonym, which usually we think it doesn't have to be the same word for a concordance. Well, not necessarily. It's a little bit more like breath as a whisper, so kind of like a personal, intimate whisper. And it's a much better word here. Ruach is like a mighty wind. A hurricane is a ruach, right? And so life begins again with the breath or the word of God. And so the human became a living being, and Yahweh planted a garden in Eden. So the first thing that God does is God makes a garden. By the way, you can't help but spot the melody pieces. If you wanted to go spot the melody piece here, you would have to go all the way to 9, let's see here, I think it's 9:20. So if you were to click on the 9:18 through 29, you'll see in 9:20 it says, and Noah began to be a man, an Adamah, of the ground, the Adam of the Adamah, and he planted a vineyard. So you can see that we're going to get very clear hyperlinks between these things, and to understand these is going to be really important. So God plants a garden, Noah plants a vineyard. And by the way, Noah is going to also illicitly take of the fruit. He's going to get drunk on wine, but we'll get to that when we get to that. All right, we were back in chapter 2, verse 8. All right, so Yahweh planted a garden in Eden toward the east, or from the old. The word east shows up 7 times in different interesting ways. And east and old, it's the same word. It could really mean either, but it could be geographically. And pretty common in Hebrew for them to deliberately mean multiple things. And he placed there the human whom he had formed, and Yahweh God caused to sprout from the ground every tree that is desirable for sight and good for eating. And so it's very similar to day 3 in that we've got trees coming up. Notice, though, that the human was actually created before the trees this time. And there's no animals yet, which is interesting. So it goes human and then trees, and then, animals will come later. And so it's not really reconcilable as video camera footage with Genesis 1. And that's just kind of something that, you have to decide if that bothers you or not. It didn't bother them, right? All right. So he caused to sprout every tree. By the way, the word ground is Adamah, from which Adam and Ad come from. And then the other word that you see used here is the land. This is the Eretz. And from the Eretz, you can break off the last word, it's eitz, which is tree. So in the same way that ground led to Adam and spring, so also land here goes with tree. And if you spoke Hebrew, you would see all these things, right? But and they reverse them, right? So from the Adamah comes the eitz, which, it's fine. All right. And they're good for sight and good for eating. So that good for sight is going to be important here real soon. And then there's 2 special trees. There's the tree of life, was in the middle of the garden, and also the tree of knowing good and bad. And so the words here for good is tov again, and the word for bad is ra. And so the tree of knowing good and bad. So this is like how you're supposed to live your life. This is the gift that God's given us so that we can live, right? Interesting, you would think that we're about to hear the story of taking the fruit, but that's not the case. These chiastic structures are so interesting. Instead, we're going to get more about creation, more about the streams going out. And so you have to kind of keep in your head the things you know, but then the structures kind of almost go back to about water, which is fun. I love this book, man. A river went out from Eden, just one of them, to water the garden, and from there it's separated. So it goes from one to many, and it becomes 4 heads. Number 4 often associated with the land and the earth, and also testing, right? And we're going to name these 4 rivers. and the amount of text we use to describe them is going to always get less and less and less, because you, of course, as an ancient Israelite, know the later ones very well, right? So the name of the first is Pishon. It goes around the whole land of Havilah, which has their gold. And the gold of that land is good. And their bdellium and onyx stones. And the name of the second river is Gihon. And it goes around the whole land of Cush, kind of like an Upper Egypt area. And so the name of the third river is Tigris. And you probably know the Tigris pretty well if you're in an area of captivity over here in Babylon. And it goes east of Assyria. And so Tigris is near the city of Nineveh, the capital of Assyria. And then the fourth is the Euphrates. And you don't need me to tell you about the Euphrates. You know the city, you know the Euphrates well. It's where Babylon is at, right? All right, just kind of a little tidbit about going out. And so, by the way, this is like their creation, right? It's interesting that we think of the world as like being completely covered by people, right? Because it kind of is now. But theirs, life was just along rivers. And so it was like life looked more like a tree. My bell's there, sorry about that. Where people only lived where there was water, right? So it's just kind of a fun way to think about how their world was structured. All right. Now back to what we were talking about with this garden and this human and stuff. So in verse 8, we've already placed the human in the garden. So he says he placed the human who he'd formed in the garden. And then in verse 15, Yahweh took, so remember this took theme we've had before? He took the human. When God does it, it's good. And he noached him in the garden. So it's Noah's name as a verb here. He rested him in the garden. So a different word than day 7 used for rest. That one was a Sabbath. This one's a noach, a rest. So he rested him in the garden that was in Eden to work it and to keep it. Work and keep are the words that priests do, right? So this human is a priest, and so his responsibility is to be a priest, to work and keep this garden. Pretty sweet. And Yahweh God commanded the human, saying, "From every tree of the garden you may surely eat." So we're not eating animals yet, right? We're only eating trees. Have a blast, right? Eat them all. Go nuts. But from the tree of knowing good and bad, which represents like choosing for yourself what is light, you shall not eat. For in the day you eat from it, you will surely die. And so we kind of take that to mean, you take a big bite of that fruit, you're dead that day, right? God is a bit more merciful from that. It turns out that they will eat from the fruit, as you know. Hopefully that's not a spoiler. And it says that in that day you will surely die. And then the next question is, well, did that happen when they eat from it? Click on verse 5 real quick. This is kind of funny. So chapter 5, verse 5. So 5:5. And the days of Adam were 930 years, and he died. So if you look at Genesis 5:5, apparently after you eat the fruit, you don't die that day. You actually live another 930 years. All right, so that is kind of interesting. Back to where we were. We're back in chapter 2 still, and we are ready for verse 18. So go ahead and click on chapter 2, verse 18. Got a human. He's in the garden. Have a blast. Just don't take from the tree of knowing good and bad. Don't decide for yourself what's right. Like, receive it from me instead of taking. And Yahweh God said, "It is not good for the human to be alone." And so this, we see that something is tov. Here, God sees that it's not good. So this is God's going to do some taking and some giving of his own, right? I will make a help counterpart for him. This is the word azer, which we don't have enough time to go into. But azer is a delivering helper. It's a very significant word. We unfortunately translated it for many years as like helper, and then people took helper to mean like subservient. Not at all the case, right? So a delivering helper who is as a mirror to him, so a help counterpart. And so Yahweh formed from the ground every living creature of the field and every bird of the skies. Wait, what's going on here? We finally made animals. That's good. We've got like the first part of day 6. but I thought we were talking about a help counterpart for Adam here. And he brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. So now he's going to do some naming. And everything which the human would call a living being, that was his name. And the human called the names of every beast and bird of the skies and every living creature of the field. Well, that's good, but that didn't really solve the problem at all. But for the human, there was not found a help counterpart, so still no good. There's no way to live with you and just the animals, right? So they came before Eve in this, so we just have the human, but that's not a solution to the problem. It's kind of like how the sun, moon, and stars were rulers before humans were rulers, but they weren't the solution to the problem. It's the secondborn that's going to be the God solution. And Yahweh caused to fall a deep sleep on the human, a tardema on the human, and he slept. And he took from his sides, like one of his sides, and he closed the flesh of his place, so not just a rib, but just like he tore him in two, right? And so, yeah, here's Yahweh's. He saw that it was not good, and then he took. It's kind of separated, but it's the same Saul took theme. And then he built. So we get another word to kind of identify this theme. And so Yahweh's doing a building project here. We're going to see building projects with Cain in a city. We're going to see building projects with Nimrod and some cities. We're going to see building projects with Sarah trying to build up a family out of Hagar. Some not so great building projects. And so he built the side that he took from the human into woman, and he brought her to the human. So Yahweh builds an Azer. So this is the first thing that's built. And there's going to be some word play with the things that get built, by the way. And the human said, "This time, bone from my bones and flesh from my flesh, this one will be called woman. For from man this one was taken. For this reason, man will leave his father and mother and will cling to his woman, and the two will become one flesh." So this idea of unity is pretty central in the Bible. We're going to see that it's not just man and woman. So for example, when Abraham and Yitzhak, so Abraham and Isaac, are at the test that they're going to be together as one as well, and so that's actually a father and son, and so it's kind of interesting. And the two of them were naked, the human and his woman, and they were not ashamed. This verse 15 is a hinge. It's kind of the finish of this one, that they were together as one, but it will also very much be a part of the next literary unit here. I like to call these pericope as we're going through. All right, time to talk to the snake. So the snake, the Nahash, is very shrewd. He's very Arum, and the two of them were Arum. They were naked. So to see something clearly is Arum, but to be naked is also Arum. Lots of really good parallels here with this naked theme to Noah becoming naked in the middle of his tent. Lots of good connections. Let's just go ahead and read it. We'll enjoy reading it. So the two of them were naked, so that's a repeat from last time. The human and his woman, and they were not ashamed. No surprise that this is going to get mirrored at the bottom if you scroll to this. They knew that they were naked, right? So much for being with no clothes on. So you can be naked and have no clothes on, but that's different from like it being a problem. Like a baby runs around naked, and that's no big deal at all, right? But they're going to still have no clothes on, but then they're going to know that they're naked, and there's going to be like shame associated with it. All right, the snake. So the snake is a symbol that was very rich in their day. The Nahash. The Nahash, it clearly does mean snake, right? No doubt about that. But it also means like the diviner, like a wizard, a sorcerer, right? So the Nahash. It also represents spiritual beings. And so a lot of these images would have popped to them when they see a Nahash. It's also very similar to the word lie, like Nahash and Kahash. So that's kind of interesting. And so Nahash means many things, right? It can literally mean snake, but it has many images in this imagery-based information, right? So the Nahash, the snake, was more shrewd, Arum, than any beast of the field which Yahweh God had made. And the snake said to the woman, Indeed, has God said, you shall not eat from any tree of the garden? Well, no, that's not what God said. God said, eat from all of them. Just don't eat from that one, right? So a little bit of truth, but a little bit of lie. And the woman said to the snake, from the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat. Yeah, go woman. But from the fruit of the tree which is in the middle of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat from it. Good job. Or touch it. What? Where did or touch it come from? Interesting how they do wordplay. Touch is like strike or hit. And so this little touch or hit, which Eve introduced pretty randomly, will get picked up later, that word. It's going to get picked up in the Abraham story, amongst other places. We don't have to leap forwards all the time. But if you were to go to like chapter 12, verse, I think it's probably around 17, Yahweh will plague Pharaoh with great plagues. One of the words in here is that he's getting struck, which is the same word as this touch that Eve said. And so these authors, they replay these melodies with a lot of the same words, which is interesting. And so this idea of being struck is one of the words that's going to get used again in the melody. All right, so let's go back. So now I've got to figure out where I was at again. So I'm in chapter 2, click on the 25 through 371 again. So she says that you can't touch it, which is not quite true. You can play football with these fruit. That's fine. Touch them all you want. Just don't eat them, right? That's what God said. So a slight difference. Or you will die. You'll surely die in the day. That's pretty close. And the snake said to the woman, you surely will not die, which is ironically true. They lived for many years after. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened. Everything he says here is ironically true, right? So your eyes are open because you're going to decide what's good and bad for yourself, right? And you will be like Elohim, knowers of good and bad. It's not a compliment. God will confirm that this did in fact happen. If you go look at the end of this narrative, you click on like the chapter 3 verses 20, verse 22 will say, look, the humans have become like one of us, knowers of good and bad. I mean, in their opinion, they are, right? So they didn't, it's ironically true, right? They became knowers of good and bad. So it's really interesting. But yeah, not in a good way. All right, so jumping back again, now we've got the center 3:6. The woman, we've read this, the woman saw that the tree was good for eating. It was desirable to the eyes, and that the tree was desirable to make one wise. Yeah, you're going to become wise. You're going to think you're wise, right? She took from its fruit and she ate. She gave also to her husband with her. He's presumably standing right there, and he ate. And so, by the way, Eve gets a lot of flack for being the fruit taker, but men are going to get a lot of flack in not being protectors of the vulnerable, right? Which, man, that's worse in a lot of ways. And we're going to see this, and Noah is going to become uncovered in his tent, and it's going to lead to problems because he's not protecting the vulnerable. Abraham with his wife, she's my sister. She's going to get taken advantage of, and so I would, men are not painted in a good picture of not doing their role, right? All right. Anyway, the eyes of both of them were opened. That's just what the snake said would happen. It did happen, right? And they knew they were naked. So the three things the snake said are all coming true. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves loin coverings. By the way, the word here it's gird is more like a belt, right? So we never draw these images with them in belt. So they make fig trees. By the way, God will decide that their fig trees are not nearly good enough. He will actually make for them garments of skin. If you wanted to find it, it's in chapter 3, verse 21. He makes for them garments of skin, which the word there is very similar to azer. It's just like one little stroke letter different. You'd have to see it. But it's or, and he clothed them. And so God doesn't like their choice. But God is also with them, and he makes for them protection, which is kind of interesting. And so that's cool. All right, so back to where we're at. We're ready for verse 8 of chapter 3. So go ahead and click on the 3, 8 through 13. They heard the sound of Yahweh walking in the garden in the ruach of the day, and the human and his woman hid themselves from before the face of Yahweh God from among the trees of the garden. So if you were a preacher, you'd spend a lot of time here, right? They're hiding themselves. And so you hide yourself, you play the blame game, things like that. And Yahweh God called to the human and said to him, Aeha, where are you? And so God is inviting them into conversation, fully aware of what's going on here. He's going to ask them 3 questions. Where are you? Who told you were naked? What have you done? Very similar to the 3 questions that Cain is going to get as well when he talks to God. And so inviting in the conversation. So we could also talk more about the Hebrew word ayeha for where are you. It's the first word in the book of Lamentations, right? So it's kind of like a sadness as well. So multiple things happening with the words they pick, which is fun here. And so Ha'adamah, the human, he said, I heard the sound of you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he, who's Yahweh God, called to the human and said to him, Who told you you were arum, you are naked? Have you eaten from the tree which I commanded you not to eat? And the human said, The woman, the woman whom you gave me, this is your fault, to be with me, she gave it to me, and I ate. You wonder what could have been different, right? This invitation to conversation, and then the way it went. And so he turns to the woman. I wonder if she gets a chance to. Makes me think of Acts, by the way, when Sapphira and her husband come, and there's like, is this all the money, right? So, but at any rate, what is this you have done? The woman said, the snake. He deceived me, and not my fault, not my fault. Great, super. So what's God to do with people that don't choose to live by the light? Should they live forever and eat from the tree of life, or do we need to do something different? And so God is forced into a situation to make some choices. And then that's where we come to one of the first poems in the Bible, one of the saddest things. Start with verse 14. So going to be some not great coming. And it's just God dealing with the situation, right? Going to curse 2 things. Going to curse the snake, and then also going to curse the ground, and then also going to name some things. So there's 2 things that he actively curses and does, and then he's going to name some unfortunate situations. And very hard chunk of text to read, but we'll kind of jump into it here. So verse 14. And Yahweh God said to the snake, Because you have done this thing, you are cursed, more than every beast, and more than every living creature of the field. On your belly you will go. So the funny thing here is the snake is already on his belly, so it's kind of not much of a curse. But if you were to consider the other meanings of Nahash, so like a diviner, like if it was essentially a human that was a sorcerer, or even more so a spiritual being who's been brought low to a humiliated place. Nothing good about eating dirt, right? Face down on the ground, eating dirt. So brought to a very low position, right? And a little bit of wordplay here on snake. From the dust you will eat all the days of your life. So there's number 1, the snake. Going to get a little bit more. Said to the snake, I will set hostility between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. And here's the very popular verse. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. So the Hebrew Bible is pointing forwards. We'll see this play out many times. Very clearly, we're pointing to Jesus here, right? So eventually, there will be some future descendant of the woman that will defeat the head of the snake. So it's like a future seed against the current Nahash. But also, you will strike his heel. Same word for strike, by the way, in both of those. But the thing that is struck is a head, and then the thing that is struck is a heel. So there will be a heel strike associated with this. And so this sets the agenda for most of the Hebrew Bible. We're looking for the snake crusher, right? It's kind of the idea here from this moment forwards. So really dense set of information here. So those things were said to the snake. The snake we pretty reliably called the devil or Satan or other terms you want to consider that you have meaning to you, but the snake here. And so that was to the first of this trio, right? By the way, there will be curses like this. So here's like a trio of curses. This is in verse 3. If you want to look for another trio of curses, you can go look at the end of the Noah story, which is kind of interesting. And so the last thing in the Noah story, where would it be? It'd probably be 9:16 or so. Oops, nope, not 9:16. That was way too early. It's at 9:25. And so the next time where this melody comes up, and there's kind of like three people. It's supposed to be Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and Noah is going to deliver some messages to them. Interestingly, though, it's not Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Then it's Canaan, a descendant of Ham, who's part of it. Whole interesting thing. It's like, what happened to Ham? Kind of wonder if Ham was still around. But at any rate, these melodies are going to get repeated. So where was I? Maybe I should stop leaping forwards quite so often. So we come to from Genesis 3:15, which is dense, and like you could spend a lifetime thinking about and meditating on that, to the next very dense thing, which is one verse later. The thing he says to the woman. So this is the shortest of the three. It's also the center of the three, which is kind of interesting. And he says, I will greatly multiply your grief, your itzabon, in your conception. Lots of slightly not that great English translations here. I think that the best way to understand this verse, greatly multiply your grief in your conception, is to look at how it's explained in the next chapter, right? And so let's look at this word conception in the next chapter, just really briefly. So flip to chapter 4 for me. So the word conception is used twice in chapter 4. Once is there's 12 males and 1 female that are born in chapter 4, but only 2 are conceived. And so the first one that's conceived is Cain. And so with Cain, she says, I created a man, right? And so conceived is really an adjective that happens in all 12 of these births that really emphasizes the you did it on your own aspect, right? So to conceive, it doesn't mean this everywhere, but it means to get pregnant. But in this area, it really means that you did it on your own, right? I gave birth. And then whenever you do it on your own, how does it work out with Cain? And then the next time it's used is in the middle. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived. And so the line of Cain has these 2 conceived. And so Cain kills Abel, and then the next conceived leads to Lamech, right? So I think that verse 15 is best understood by looking at chapter 4 to where we understand what conceived means. And that means like great anguish, right? And by the way, a lot of English translations take it as like painful child labor. That's not what it means at all. And we could go into why. But also I'll say that this, like one son killing another, this is way worse than labor pains, right? Labor pains are really bad. I get that. I'm not a female, but I get that they're really bad. But having one child kill the other child, that is a great, it's a bone, right? A great pain, right? And then if you go back to verse 16 again, it says the parallel is that in grief, so this is not greatly multiplied grief, this is just in grief, you will birth children. I like to actually translate the word children here with the masculine specific. It's the same word, benanim, so sons, because in chapter 4, interestingly, again, there's 12 male births, but only 2 say the word sons, and they're at the bottom, right? So if you scroll to the bottom, you scroll all the way to verse 25, It says Adam knew his wife again, and she birthed a son. And so to birth a son, she says it's Shet, who means appointed. God appointed me a seed. And so there's definitely pain. This one could be labor pains, right? I'm okay with this one being labor pains. But when you receive a son, there's still going to be pain, but he is listed as a son, and then the son born to him is Enosh, a mortal. And so I think that we really understand 3:16 best by looking at the next chapter of what these two parts, how these two words are used in the next chapter. All right, sorry that took so long, but it just takes a while to parse these really dense passages. Naming some more things that are not good. Your desire will be for your husband. Again, this is spelled out in the next chapter. Sin is crouching like a lion to try to get Cain, or like an animal. I shouldn't have said lion. And its desire is for you. It wants you. It covets you, right? So a woman will apparently covet some power that the husbands have, presumably, but he will marshal over you. This is the marshal that the sun and the moon do. This is kind of like to rule with an iron fist. This is not what humans do. This is a kind of a pretty negative ruling, right? It can be positive. Again, the next chapter will explain it better. Because God says to Cain that he must rule over sin, right? And so, yeah, you want to marshal sin. That's great. But men should not marshal women. And so we're naming some pretty horrible things here. So probably the densest couple of verses here that we'll find is when God's talking to the woman. All right, let's finish with the human. Not quite as hard here with the human. So to the human, so presumably Adam, Ha-Adam, he said, because you've listened to the voice of your wife. Listening to the voice of your wife is going to come back up quite a lot in the Abraham narratives. God will tell him to listen to the voice of his wife when it comes to sending away Hagar. This is all about right relationships with your partners. So to listen to the voice of his wife. And so it's a good thing. It's inverted whenever we get to, what's that going to be? That's going to be Genesis, I don't know, it's 20 or 21 or so. You ate from the tree about which I commanded you, saying, you will not eat from it. Cursed is the ground. Whew, near miss. Cursed is the ground on account from you. In grief, you will eat from it. So we see this word in grief again, right? So this itzabon worth that he's talking about with the woman. And so really the itzabon, it's the grief as you go about doing your work to bring life. And so it's kind of funny. The male here, his role in bringing life is to plant vegetables in the ground. Women bring life by making humans, right? So it's like in whatever your creative work is, you're going to have grief doing it. All the days of your life. By the way, that all the days of your life, that echoes back up to the snake, all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall sprout for you, and you will eat the plants of the field, and the sweat of your face you will eat bread, until you return to the ground. Kind of like how the snake was face down on the ground. For from it you are taken, you are dust, and to dust you will return. So this word dust, it echoes back to the snake here. It also echoes back to when God created a human that will return to dust, right? So I don't know. Don't consider that one quite as hard to parse. So we'll just kind of move on as the woman's. All right. So we've had our three cursings, our three talkings to with two cursings, and a lot of naming this new unfortunate reality that we now find ourselves in. Very different tone than Genesis 1 story of creation, right? All right. If you click on the next one, we'll finish up the Eden narrative. And the human called, he's calling again. So remember how he was calling all the animals their names. He called the name of his woman. His woman could also be his wife. Hawa, Eve is how we pronounce it, right? I don't really remember the right way to say it, but I just say Eve. For she is the mother of all the living, the life. And God made for them the order, kind of like how he made an Azer. So he did something to help protect them in this new reality. So it's not like kicked out of the garden, now you're on your own. In fact, we've now been kicked out of the garden. We're still in Eden. And you'll find in the next story, God's still going to be there. He's going to be talking to Cain, right? But you're going to have to deal with the new situation we're in. And Yahweh God said, the human has become like one of us, knowing good and bad. And now, so that he won't send out his hand, so the sending out of his hand and taking is important. It's going to get brought back up. Noah and the doves. So he sends out his hand and he takes a dove and brings it into the ark. And then in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, the angels are going to take out their hand and they're going to bring Lot into the house, right? So the sending out your hand and taking is a theme that we're going to see, a melody we're going to hear a lot. So he won't send out his hand and take from the tree of life and eat and live forever. God's going to do these things. So it would be horrible for people to live forever in that state. And so, again, it's a divine mercy situation, right? Makes sense to me. And Yahweh God sent him out from the garden to work the ground from which he was taken, and he banished the human. And he made to dwell at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flame of the whirling sword to guard the way to the tree of life. So we started with water coming up, and we finished with a flame of the whirling sword. So the mission for the rest of the narrative is pretty simple. How do we get back to right relationship with God? How do we get back to the garden? How do we walk with God in the cool of the day? And so Adam and Eve, the first people to get a walk with God, and we're going to see that pick up quite a lot with Enoch walking with God, Noah walking with God, Abram literally walking around in the promised land with God. But how do we get back? Pretty clear separation there. Usually there's a hinge from story to story, but that one feels pretty clean. And then we're going to start in on chapter 4. So you can take a minute and just kind of ponder things over, but we're going to dive into chapter 4. All right, chapter 4, verse 1. Most people talk about this as being the Cain and Abel story, but chapter 4 is actually the Cain and Seth story. And their names are, of course, pronounced different from that. Seth, it's funny, the S is actually an SH, and then the TH is actually a T, so it's actually Shet. And Cain would be a better way to say Cain, but I can't maintain saying those, so I'm just going to say Cain and Seth. And so if you're looking at the visual outline, you can see how verse 1 is exactly the opposite of verse 25. So there are these two contrasting things. So in 1, there's going to be conceiving of Cain, where the emphasis is going to be on I made him just like Yahweh. And then on 25, it's going to be about giving birth to a son, if you think back to Genesis 3:15. And I will name him Shet, because God has Shet him to me. He has appointed him to me. And so you see a real transformation in the Eve here. So from saying she did it to saying I've received Shet. And you're going to see that things are going to go a lot better with that approach. All right, so in the grand scheme of the melody, we've kind of had our choice moment at the tree, and then the melody is going to start going into the division of brothers. And so it's going to be every generation is going to get some of the same choices, and we don't have to make the choices that we make, but we so regularly do that it makes a melody. So we're going to see the next generation with Cain and Abel. We're going to see kind of the build-up of generations up to Lamech, which kind of is patterned in Nimrod. And then it's going to get supernatural as well, this Nephilim. We'll get into that when we get into that. And then what is God to do when this matter comes up before him? But to have some restorative plan for moving forwards. And so it's going to be the ark, which is going to be interesting. All right, let's go ahead and dive in and actually read chapter 4 with the Cain and Abel story. So the human, still called the human, knew his wife Eve, who has a proper name. She conceived and gave birth to Cain. And she said, I have Cain a man. So this word Cain, it means like she did it. It's the word for blacksmith, like you made it yourself. In modern Hebrew, it's the word for to buy something, like you bought it, you paid for it, it's yours, right? It's also the word for jealousy, which is interesting. By the way, the names here are so funny. It's like I've got two sons. One's jealousy, and then the other is appointed seed. How's this story going to go? It's so funny to me how often you can just see the names of characters and how the authors have woven the meanings of their names into the explanations of who they are. It does not stop here, right? You can look at like Ruth. She goes there with sicko and done for, right? Could all the names. So interesting. At any rate, she said, I've created a man, et Yahweh. What does that et mean? It seems to mean more like in comparison with Yahweh. It's similar to like, you shall have no other gods before me in the Ten Commandments. It's like it's a comparison more than anything else. And she also gave birth to his brother Abel. Merely an afterthought. Look at all these words for Cain. Adam knew his wife, she conceived, she gave birth, all of that for Cain, because that parallels with Seth down below. But yeah, she's also Abel. Never mind. All right, the Cain and Abel story. Abel was a shepherd of flocks. Cain was a tiller of the ground. And it came about from the end of days, so after a while, and Cain brought fruit of the ground, an offering to Yahweh. Fruit from the ground is a perfectly acceptable sacrifice. Go read Leviticus, right? Grain offerings, nothing wrong with that. And then Abel, he brought from the firstborn. So with Cain, it just said he brought some fruit. But for Abel, it chooses to say that he brought the firstborn of his flock. And from their fat portion, so the best parts were brought. This clearly is written from a time where they have a sacrificial system, and his are the best offerings. And this is going to tie very strongly into what they were still practicing at the time of Jesus, and then also quite a bit of the Hebrew Bible. How these Cain and Abel knew all the Levitical laws, that's a fun little debate. And so Yahweh gazed upon Abel and his offering, but upon Cain and his offering, he did not gaze. Very sparse information here. What was wrong with Cain's offering? It doesn't really say, but presumably there's problems that Yahweh sees beyond just what the literal thing is, right? And there was heat anger to Cain, and his face fell. And Yahweh said to Cain, so it's similar to kind of like Yahweh talking to Adam and Eve, right? Why is there heat anger in you? Why has your face fallen? If you do tov, won't there be lifting up? If you do not do tov, at the door sin is a croucher, and its desire is for you, but you can rule over it. Okay, pause. Verse 7 here, again, one of these extremely dense verses, right? Just extremely dense. So this desire for you, this is kind of like a woman's desire will be for her husband. So sin wants you. Sin is a croucher. It's like an animal. It's like alive. It's not necessarily said to be a snake, but we kind of see some snake parallels here, right? And it's called sin. First time sin is introduced in the Bible. Sin most literally means to miss the mark. So like an archer can sin if he misses the target. But God has set what life is, how to live life, and to sin is to miss that mark, right? And we also get the introduction of the door. The door can very much literally be the door to Eden. I mean, they're standing right there, the cherubim and the flaming swords right behind you, right? And so we're trying to get through the door. The door is also a huge theme. It's going to show up in Noah. So God closed the door of the ark. It's going to show up in Lot and the house. So Lot tries to close the door, but it doesn't really do much. But then the angels close the door. It represents like a decision as well, an opportunity. You're going to see it in Acts. So the feet of the men who buried your husband are at the door. The doors of the temple were closed when they pulled Paul out. This door concept is going to show up in Revelations. The door that God has shut, no one can open. So at any rate, it's an opportunity for him to make a choice. And sin is desiring for you, but you can marshal it. You've got every opportunity here, next generation. And to marshal, like I say, this thing that the sun, moon, and the stars do. It's the thing that man will unfortunately do to woman, but you should marshal sin here, right? And so opportunity in this discussion. And Cain spoke to his brother, Abel, his brother. We know he's his brother. Why repeat his brother? And it came about when they were in the field, and Cain rose up to Abel, his brother, and he killed him. By the way, his brother is listed 7 times. And so we go from taking a fruit to killing somebody really fast. And so this spiraling out of control, it does not take long with the way the Bible is written. And Yahweh said to Cain, "Where is Abel, your brother?" And he said, "I do not know. Am I the keeper of my brother?" A little Hebrew wordplay. The word brother and the word one are associated. So brothers are supposed to be one. It's aha and ahad. And so this concept of unity and brothers supposed to be united is central. And it's said here very delicately. So these two aha, who should be ahad, they are not. It's also interesting, like, the Abraham story, when Abraham and Isaac are going up there, right? Isaac's got the wood on his back. It repeatedly says that they were together as one. And so that story that we assume is like this crazy, unbelievable thing, they're united, right? Like Isaac trusts Abram. And there's no real story that's more indicative of like Jesus trusting his father and putting the wood on his back than that story. But to understand that story, you got to do the work, right? And so this story is all about brothers who are not just divided, but one is killing the other. And so this naming of what we do even today, right? And he said, wasn't he always talking? They regularly do this. They stick in an "and he said" just to help you with the literary design, right? So we're going to have another question. So the first was, "Where is your brother?" It's kind of like that "Ayeha," where are you? Then the question, the next one is, "What have you done?" That's the exact question that was the final question with Adam and Eve. "The voice of the shed blood of your brother is crying out to me from the ground." Again, more wordplay. I won't mention these every time, but Adamah, we know that you can take off the end and you can make Adam, but the middle 2 letters are Dam. And blood is the word dam. So literally the blood is crying out from the ground. It's the middle 2 letters of a 4-letter word, the dam from the Adamah, right? So this blood crying out from the ground, the cries came up and he heard, right? And now you are cursed. And so Cain got cursed here. Ooh, but from the ground, which has opened its mouth, so kind of like a sword can be a mouth, to receive the dam, the shed blood of your brother from your hand. When you work the ground, it will no longer yield its strength to you. So you're going to not be a very successful farmer anymore. You will be a vagrant and a wanderer. The words for vagrant and wanderer, they're connected to the word Eden. Not really a big deal. So God is declaring that Cain will be a vagrant and a wanderer. By the way, does Cain accept that? Does Cain continue to be a vagrant and a wanderer? No, he does not. He builds his own city. Kind of love it. And Cain said to the Lord, "My punishment is too great to lift up. Behold, you have banished me this day from the face of the ground, and from your face I will be hidden, and I will be a vagrant and a wanderer in the land. Whoever finds me will kill me." We have the biggest problem with the "whoever finds me" part. It's like, wait a minute, aren't there only like 3 humans now? But again, authors didn't have any problem with there being a whole bunch of other people too, right? Even though it's kind of written in one way, the way we interpret it. But whoever finds me will kill me. And so Yahweh said to him, so kind of like how we give the garments of skin, this unfortunate situation, God will do something about it to protect them. Therefore, whoever kills Cain 7 times over, he will be avenged. And Yahweh established a sign for Cain. So Cain has a problem. People are going to kill him. But God is going to protect him in the same way that he gave skins to Adam and Eve. He's giving a sign over Cain to where if anyone were to kill him, he would be avenged. So Yahweh is going to protect him in this, right? Is Cain going to accept it? No way. He's going to build an a city, right? So anyone who finds him would not strike him. And Cain went out from the face of Yahweh, and he dwelled in the land of wandering, which is also the land of Nod, east of Eden. So Cain goes east. Huge notes here that we're going to hear as they go east. So like Babylon, they're going to go east to Shinar. And so lots of musical notes that you're going to hear here. And then the world keeps on turning. Cain's gonna go have children. So Cain knew his wife. We spend all of our time thinking about where did she come from, but that wasn't the concern here. She conceived. Ooh, that's not good. We should not. I mean, clearly she did get pregnant, right? But the fact that we mentioned that she conceived is in this section really bad, right? She conceived and gave birth to Enoch. Oh, that's a pretty good name. It means dedicated. It's kind of like Hanukkah. He built a city. Who built a city? Did Enoch build the city? He called the name of the city Enoch according to the name of his son. Okay, so it must have been Cain who built the city. He must have dedicated it to Enoch according to the name of his son. The word city here, by the way, it's another one of these wordplay things. So Azer, so God built an Azer, God built the skins, but then instead of Cain accepting the sign, Cain built his own city, Ir. That's the word for city, which is not what God's plan was for him. So it's going to continue to go bad. By the way, this wordplay of Ezer, or Ir, the next one is going to be Zoar. And so Lot is going to choose his version of protection in Zoar. And it's literally just like almost the exact same word with these exact same 3-letter words where there's an A and an R. It's just so interesting how they wrote this. Then we get our first miniature genealogy. Very, very tight here. Very few words. We have Enoch, Irad, Irad birthed Mahuyael, Mahuyael birthed Methuselah, Methuselah birthed Lamech. Very short. There's going to be no other genealogies in Genesis that fit into one verse, right? 7 people, so ends in Lamech. So we have the completion of what happens when conceived with Lamech. So the 7th generation Lamech is going to not go well either. Right? We don't need to read it to know it goes poorly. By the way, all kinds of things you can look at. The name Irad here is very similar to Yerad, who's going to be in the next genealogy. Methuselah, same name. Lamech, same name. And so the authors are again doing theology here, right? So the seed of the snake and the seed of the woman are going to be very hard to distinguish who's who. It's also interesting that like it talks about your seed will crush his head. The first literal seed of Eve is Cain, and he does not crush the head, right? And so this idea of birth leading to like that being enough is inverted from the get-go here. Let's read about Lamech. He's pretty fun. So Lamech, I cannot help but beat my chest when I say Lamech. Lamech took for himself 2 wives. Again, we have the idea of taking for himself. When Abraham, he's going to take a wife, and so is Nahor is going to take a wife. So there's a lot of taking of wives, which is not great. The name of one was Adah. The name of the other was Zilhah. The names here, by the way, they mean delight and shade. Like I would suspect that if you were to meet Adah and Zilhah, I bet Adah was very beautiful, and shade was very luxurious. I bet these are like kings and queens that you would see, right? So not names of death or anything like that. People that would have all been good. And so Lamech took 2 wives. Is taking 2 wives good? Is that what we said earlier? Man and woman will become one flesh? No. Bible is so interesting. It doesn't come out and say, like what Lamech did in taking 2 wives was opposed to the will of God. But you kind of watch how things go and you figure things out from the Bible. But definitely not the 2 becoming one flesh. Very much man marshaling over women, right? Ruling them. And Adah gave birth to Yubal. He was the father of those who dwell in tents and have livestock. And his brother it was Yabal, and now this one's Yubal. He was the father of all those who play the lyre and the pipe. So it's interesting. These are a lot of good things that the seed of the snake is doing, that's kind of interesting. It's also interesting that this is all pre-flood. So how is he the father of all those who live in tents if this whole line is going down in the flood? Kind of interesting. So some, again, apparently contradictory things that the authors did not mind putting right in front of you. So Adah has those two sons, Yabal and Yubal. And then Zilha, she gives birth to Tubal-Cain. And so if you're counting names, I think this is the 10th son, which is where we're at with Tubal-Cain. His name has Cain right in it, right? So you can't help but miss that, which means blacksmith. And he was the forger of all the implements of bronze and iron. Sure enough, he's a blacksmith. And so it's kind of interesting that we're kind of closing the Cain line here. So Lamech was the 7th. And then these three kind of make 8, 9, and 10. It's interesting how you don't necessarily count generations because these are 3 brothers. Does the idea of 3 brothers, I don't know, Cain and Abel and Seth, 3 brothers, or Avram, Nahor, and Haran, 3 brothers. So funny. So he's the 10th. By the way, there's 12 boys total. The next will be Shet and Enoch, so 12 boys, and then 1 girl. And by the way, this concept of 12 boys and 1 girl is going to be a theme that comes up. So we have the 12 tribes of Israel, which is the 12 boys, and Dinah, so 12 boys, 1 girl. When Rebecca is born, it's going to be listing out 12 boys and then 1 girl, Rivka. So interesting how they do these things. So she's here with the 10th. Rivka will be with the 8th. And so we get this sister of Tubal-Cain named Naamah, which I think is similar to the word Eden. Again, it's like, why was she mentioned? Like, what does this add value? And in a lot of Jewish thought, they would say that Naamah was the wife of Noah, which is interesting, but it doesn't say that in the Bible. But we definitely mention the sister here, which is so fun. So Lamech said to his 2 wives, Adah and Zilha, "Listen to my voice, wives of Lamech. Hear my speech, chest pounding. I have killed a man for wounding me." So we have murder again, which is no good. And it's much more than eye for an eye, right? So he was wounded by a boy for striking me. So somebody insults me and I kill him. So the spiral of seeing what's good in your eyes, it's out of control already. And Cain, if Cain's avenged 7 times, then Lamech 77 times. In classroom, one of the people asked, was like, "Can you do that? Can you just declare that God will avenge you?" No, no, you cannot. We also have the number 7 many times, right? So 7 times here, 77 times. We have Lamech, who is the 7th. By the way, if you count the total number of members of Lamech's family, there's Lamech, there's 1, 2 wives, that's 2 and 3. And then we have 3 boys, 4, 5, and 6. Oh, and 1 girl. How many people is that in the family of Lamech? It's 7, right? So these authors, they're so fun. Spiral of badness. But then after the spiral of badness, we back up a little bit. We kind of rewind the clock. And we say, Adam knew his wife again, and she gave birth to a son. There's no conceived word. Instead, we have the son word. This is going to go much better. So still going to have birth pains, right? That's not going to go away. But if you think back to Genesis, what was it, 3:16, it's going to go much better. She named him Shet. We've already read this. God appointed me another seed. I think it's actually Elohim. I'm surprised that it says God here in Tim's translation. He appointed me another son in place of Abel, for Cain killed him. And to Shet, to him also was born a son. And he called his name Enosh. Enosh means mortal, so he's a mortal person. He's going to die, right? And it was begun to call upon the name of Yahweh. Abraham will regularly call upon the name of Yahweh. He's going to build altars in different places, and he's going to call upon the name of Yahweh. And so information about Yahweh is being passed down from generation to generation. So really enjoyable, really well structured with a beginning and a middle that's closed, and then also this knew his wife is 3 times. It's at the start, it's at the end, it's at the middle. Really well structured, really tight chunk here in chapter 4, and you can see how it connects very directly to the Adam and Eve story because it's all about Eve, right? So Eve is at the beginning and the end of this, right? And then Adam finally gets a name here in verse 25. And we're going to need a name for Adam because he's about to become a specific person instead of just a generic the human. And we're going to need a name because we're now in a genealogy. And so this transition from one thing to the next regularly happens with genealogies. And so we're going to have 10 generations as we go to Noah. Noah is going to be the 10th generation. By the way, we're going to have another 10 generations after the Noah story. There's going to be 10 generations that start with Shem and end in Terah. And Terah is going to have 3 sons. And we're going to, this melody of God creating, people making a choice, choices leading to these tests lead to division and lack of unity, and then they'll lead to collapse, and then God will bring about new life. We'll preserve a remnant and we'll carry on. It's funny, by the time you die, you will not be surprised at all that you will keep on living. God will preserve the remnant because you will have read this cycle so many times in Genesis that by the time it happens to you, you'll be like, duh. All right, so it's so great. All right, anyway, I'm a little preacher there. My apologies. Back to reading. I'm going to skip some here because you're going to get bored, right? So I'm going to skip a little bit. We'll focus on just the ones that are different is really what we're going to do. All right, so take a pause, and then we're going to read this genealogy, chapter 5, nothing but a genealogy. This is the scroll of generations of Adam. So this is our second of these 10 markers. The first one was the scroll of generations, the Toledot of the skies and the land. This is the Toledot about Adam. The idea is that this story is no longer going to be about Adam. So this is kind of like the passing of the torch to the next generation. Again, you'll see this in the Abraham story. There'll be a time where he passes the torch to the next generation. And so we're going to kind of quit worrying about Adam so much. And this is going to be a transition into the Noah narrative is really what we're doing here with this Toledot. In the day when Elohim created humanity, so kind of echoing back to the beginning of the Eden narrative, he made him in the likeness of Elohim. We're mixing the Genesis 1 creation narrative. So whoever wrote this had both of those stories in the mind, and we're intricately kind of weaving them together in fun ways. That's cool. Male and female, he created them, just like Genesis 1 text said, and he blessed them. Yes, he did. He baraked them. And he named them human. So naming, blessing, in the day when they were created. So many fun little, bringing this section of the story to a close with a lot of the repeated words. And Adam lived 130 years, and he caused the birth of one in his own likeness, according to his image, and named him Shet. And the days of Adam, after he caused the birth of Shet, were 800 years, and he caused the birth of sons and daughters, and all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. This melody is so funny whenever the Bible is verbose. You can't miss it. It's done 10 times. And so we're going to get a list of 10 people. This list of 10 people has some really interesting parallels to Samaritan king list, which also has like a list of 10 kings and different times that they lived. And this Sumerian king list has a really special person in the 7th slot because they love 7, same way as these authors love 7s. And the special one in their slot is Enmedaranki, which means the bridge of heaven and earth. And here the special 7th one is going to be Enoch, who walked with God, and God is going to take him. Remember how God took Adam? God taking is a good thing, right? And so Enoch is going to be very special, but in very contradictory ways than Enmedaranki was special. So it's just kind of interesting. Also, I'll say that the Sumerian king list, they lived very, very long periods of time. They also used numbers differently. So they would live for thousands and thousands of years. But the important thing about their thousands and thousands is how it was a multiple of 60. So their number system with the Babylonians, they had like the ones digit column, and then they had the 60s digit column, and then they had the 60s times 60s column, which is, of course, 3,600. And so when they would express the names of those kings, they would live for some number of sars, is what it is, so 3,600 years. And a sar is like a great cycle. And so anyone that lives more than a great cycle is divine, right? And so all these kings were divine, and they would live for multiple 3,600 year cycles. And it's just really interesting to see how this list is parallel to their list. One of the key differences in this list is we don't care about the number 3,660 times 60 because that's a Babylonian thing. We care about the number 10. We also care about the number 100 and the number 1,000. So these are numbers that represent God. If you remember, God said 10 times, God will bring the 10 plagues. 10 is regularly a number associated with God. It's Ashar, which is interesting because it kind of follows that some other word patterns. It's going to be a 10th and the whole thing. So at any rate, Seth is going to live for 105 years. Sometimes the opposite of a number is half that number. So 5 can mean somebody who's separated from God. The point here of all these people is that none of them are divine. They're all mortal. I know we look at it and we say, they lived a really long time. But really, the significant thing is that it's always less than 1,000, right? None of these people are divine. They're all mortals. And we're going to see that they're all mortals because the name of Seth's son is Enosh, which is mortal, right? Seth lived for a number of years. He had Enosh. After Enosh, he had other sons and daughters. He lived to 912, short of a divine number of years, short of 1,000. Enosh had Canaan, different from Cain, different from Canaan, and he lived 905. And he had other sons and daughters, and he died. By the way, this is one of the only genealogies that mentions the "and he died," so very much about death with these people. Not going to read them all in detail. The next one is Mahalalel. After Mahalalel is Jared or Yared. So a lot of these names are similar to the seed of the snake that we got that was very short. That one was one verse. This is much more verbose. Then we finally get, after Yared, we get to the 7th, we get to Enoch. Blazing through this, I'm going to read Enoch, though, just because Enoch is different. Enoch lived for 65 years, and he caused the birth of Methuselah. Methuselah, I believe, is the oldest out of everybody. Enoch walked with God, so he journeyed with God. This idea of journeying with God is extremely critical. It's going to be used in Abraham's story. He's going to journey with God through all kinds of places. Luke, the narrative, it's all about this journey that they do with Jesus. And so this shaping is a journey with God, right? So Enoch journeyed with God 300 years after he became the father of Methuselah, so 65 before, then another 300. And all the days of Enoch were 365. Same as the number of days in a solar year. I'm not quite sure what to do with that, but it's interesting. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So like the 7th, the thing that we are saying, in Metaranki, he talked with the gods, and then he came back and he became rich and famous and powerful and brought all this stuff. But really the best thing in their worldview is just to walk with God, and then to be taken by God. And so that's like the ultimate, which is kind of different. Methuselah lived a long time. He gave birth to another person named Lamech. I should have mentioned this before. These are all names, right? These are all meaningful names. You could break them down. You can get the meaning of all these names, except for Lamech. Lamech is not really a name. Lamech is a clever wordplay. So it's the word king is Melech, and the word Lamech they're both 3 letters long, the exact same 3 letters, and Lamech is the swapping of the first and the second letters. And so Lamech, I should have said this before, is a mixed up king, right? And so kind of bad Lamech was a king, and he was kind of a mixed up king. But then we also have another Lamech here, and it's hard to tell the difference between the 2 lines. And this Lamech, I call him good Lamech. This Lamech is going to give birth to Noah, the 10th. So it's just kind of interesting how the same name is used. The only 2 times that this name Lamech is ever used, because it's not really a name. And Lamech lived, and he caused the birth of a son. Yeah. And he called his name Noah. Noah means rest. And so he's going to be the one who finally gives us rest from the work of our hands. And so if you think back to what God said to Adam, you're going to work the ground. And then if you think to Cain, you're going to have trouble working the ground. And so now we finally get this idea of rest again in Noah. This will be the one that gives us rest from our work and from the toil of our hands from the ground, which the Lord has cursed. Yes, he did curse it. This saying is going to become ironically true. And so there will, in fact, be a relief from the curse, but it's not quite in the way that you think. It's going to come at the moment that God sees that their heart is not changed. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find this one or not. But at the moment that he sees the heart of humanity is bad from his youth. So Yahweh decides, so this is, I finally found it, chapter 8, verses 21. I will never again curse the ground on account of humanity. It's a little bit more, I will no longer consider it cursed. But it is kind of ironically true. That Noah is the one that will relieve us from this curse. But it's going to be because God is going to change how he looks at people in the land, right? So he's going to consider the ground not to be cursed anymore. It may not have actually changed in any way, but God's going to change his approach to humanity. And the reason is because it's all about the heart. So the flood is not going to solve any problems because it won't change the heart. All right, I'm just kind of getting off my my high horse there. All right, back to chapter 5. We were trying to finish a genealogy. And Lamech lived some period of time, and then he died. And then we finally get to the 10th, Noah. Noah was 500 years old, and he caused the birth of Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now you expect you've seen this pattern many times. You expect for him to say how many years he lived after. You expect it to say he caused the birth of other sons and daughters, and you expect it to say and he died. The chapter breaks here. If you turn to chapter 6, you will not find those closing verses. Instead, you're going to have to go diving into the Noah story. If you wanted to, you could read chapter 7, verse 6. It says, Noah was 600 years old when the flood came upon the land. That's something that you could read and kind of know more about it. You could also read, let's hear, what would be another good one to read? It says that Noah walked with God. So I think that's going to be in chapter 6 is probably where that one is. Chapter 6, verse 9. These are the birth generations of Noah. Noah was a righteous one, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with Elohim, so that's 6:9. So Noah walks with Elohim, kind of like Enoch, kind of like how Abram will walk with God, kind of like how Adam walked with God in the cool of the day. And then you'll finally get the end of this genealogy in chapter 9. It's going to be, not chapter 9. It's going to be, chapter 9, verse 28. I just wasn't in the right part of chapter 9. And finally, this genealogy will come to end. And Noah lived after the flood 350 years. Notice he did not birth other sons and daughters. And all the days of Noah were 950 years, still short of being divine, and he died. So this quilt piece got broken. and it takes you a while to find the end of chapter 5, and that's because you've got to go to the end of chapter 9 to find it. All right, really interesting stuff, really enjoyable. Take a break. So take a big break this time. We're going to dive into chapter 6. We're actually still in the same part of the melody. We just kind of had a little time out there for the seed of the woman, right? The kind of the seed of the woman genealogy. Where we're at in the melody is this spiraling out of control from Cain to Lamech. And now we're going to pick right back up where we left off with Lamech in chapter 4 with the spiraling out of control and the Nephilim. All right, take yourself a big pause.